And good morning, everybody. Hi, I'm Walter, and I'm the Dutch mentor. And today is again a version of our Monday morning chat about leadership. Although it might not be Monday morning today for you as you're watching this, but it is important, and it's part of our mission that we are committed to continuous self development and raising self awareness. So I've been bringing speakers and advisors to our conversations who can help looking at your leadership style today or what you desire for the future from a different point of view. So today I welcome Dr. Kevin Joseph to the conversation, and we already have had several chats before. I've had the opportunity to read his book. I'll read the Cracking the Healthcare Leadership Code, which is available on Amazon. A picture of that will be posted on the presentation today, as well as if you come to my website at thedutchmentor.com, you can certainly pick up a copy there, and we encourage you to do so. So Kevin, welcome to our conversation today. And why don't we start off with telling a little bit about yourself and your background? Then we'll flow it into what the book is all about. And then we'll close it up talking a little bit about your mentoring and advising philosophy for future leaders, especially position leaders.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to the conversation in the partnership with you and Dutch Mentor. So a little bit about myself. I kind of joke around. Sometimes someday I'll figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So, that comes from originally, I was an engineer, and I thought I wanted to go into engineering, completed my degrees, did that for about a year and decided to go to medical school. After medical school, did emergency medicine residency and practiced for a couple of years. And then a hospital opened up, local community, about 250, 280 bed hospital. And literally overnight, I was asked to be the CEO. Went out to dinner on Sunday, and dinner ended at 9 o'clock. And they said, "Hey, by the way, you're no longer going to be medical director. We're going to make you into the CEO of the hospital." So I tell you that story because I was thrust into leadership and didn't really have a mentor and just had to figure it out by myself. And, for the next couple of months, I didn't sleep much, put on a bunch of weight, got on high blood pressure medications, and I didn't know what to do. I was lost as a physician who's thrown into a role that as a medical student or a resident, you have no training really in leadership, except for maybe if you're a surgeon, you're the captain of the ship, or emergency department, you have to take control of the situation when there's a code. But other than that, didn't have anything. So I had to figure it out. And that's a lot of what my book is about, is a lot of the stories of how I learned the hard way and what caused the high blood pressure and and obesity and whatnot, which has now all gone away, thankfully. Because I was able to find a mentor, and I was able to figure out what leadership really is. So I became CEO of a hospital, decided to go back and get my MBA, which has been quite helpful. After that, I was really almost a COO light, so to speak, of a academic medical healthcare system. It was 3 medical campuses, and my job was to run all 3 campuses. After that, I went across town and became the chief medical officer of a healthcare system, which was fantastic. Healthcare system had a very strong focus on population health, one of the top population health in the country, actually. And so great for my learning and really learning about what the future of medicine is. Mm-hmm. And then moved across the country, halfway across the country, to become the chief clinical officer of a pretty decent sized market. And so I have a chief medical officer reporting up to me, and still have a fair amount of operations that I'm involved with, because it's very tight between operations, leadership, clinical care. And so I've been doing that, and it's been great. But over the last few years, I learned so much about leadership, and I've coached so many physicians about, by the way, when you go into leadership, this is what the transition is going to feel like. And I have a kind of a presentation of, as a physician, for example, you get immediate feedback from people every day. And so it's quick, it's frequent. As a leader, you don't get much feedback unless it's negative. It doesn't come often. And so your, gratification source, reassurance source, instead of coming external frequently, comes infrequent and has to be from the internal. And so it's just those small things that really, I think, help people cope in the transition into leadership. So what often happens is, by the way, you're a good residency director, let's make you chairman. You're a good chairman, let's make you vice president of a hospital, VPMA, or whatever it may be. And then they leave you alone. And so that's where I've really garnered a lot of my interest and mentoring, and then being part of the Dutch Mentor is
Mhm.
to really kind of give back in one way before being partnered with you is that book that we talked about,
Yeah.
Cracking the Healthcare Leadership Code.
Yeah, so the thing that you're saying is right, exactly what I experienced as an administrator working with many talented physicians, and it's so sad to see the frustration. You had this high performance and high potential candidate in the technical world, and they're being drafted now into leadership. Not sometimes they want to, sometimes they drafted into it, and they fall into this gap, or what they call sometimes the valley of despair. It is an area that, what now? This is not me making a differential diagnosis by looking at blood tests, that immediate response and action. And it is the failure that I've seen in the healthcare system at large of not recognizing that and being able to countermeasure that by giving proper support. Now, similar to you, I came across a mentor 12 years ago. He's still my mentor today, and it truly was a savings, to me, in a sense that, I was now finally able to share my struggles with somebody who had been there, done that. And they
Mhm.
were not able to do things for me, but they were able to guide me and kind of challenge my thinking along the way while laying down a foundation of what we now know today on how to become a highly effective leader, raising that self-awareness and being that truly committed to being, self-development. And that comes into, I think I refer to it as a 70-20-10. You have a slightly different ratio to that, but it is on the job learning. It is through the coach and mentorship, and it's about, getting the degree or certification or that classroom exposure you need in support of that. So, it's really good to hear that you struggled your way through that. And I always talk about students. They say, what happens to a chick if you crack its shell and you take it out, right? I mean, that chick is going to die. I said, well, why would it die? Because it needs that struggle in order to be able to crack the egg and strengthen its muscles in order to thrive. Well, I'm still a proponent of people coming into through the change of technical skills into leadership, but they need to go through that struggle of wanting to learn and grow and be challenged along the way and not just hear the things they want to hear. So I think the value of your book, and let's talk about that for a second. So you have three words in here, right? How purpose, humility, and accessibility can transform you and the organization itself. So tell me a little bit about what are these key words? Why did you choose the words purpose and humility and accessibility as something that helps people get through that valley of despair to hopefully thriving and performing in the future?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think purpose and having a purpose and understanding it, really sitting back and really put it on paper actually, uh, is more important now than it ever has been. I think people going into medicine, they're doing it for a reason. They have a purpose. They kind of know what it is, but have they ever really written it down to then focus on it? And that is my true north. And I say it's most important now because of what we're going through across the country in healthcare, burnout. And
Yeah.
a lot of that is not all of it, but can be mitigated by knowing your purpose and saying, my purpose is to help other people. My purpose, and maybe if you're in academics, is to teach the next generation or to find the next advancement in science, whatever it may be. And so it's the first chapter in my book. Uh, and I come back to it again at the very end, the last chapter, which is about burnout. And there's a great diagram. I did not create it. I did get permission from someone else. This ikigai, which is a
Yeah.
Japanese term for purpose, finding purpose, and it kind of walks you through the steps. But I would encourage anyone, doesn't matter healthcare or any other industry, um, just think about what your purpose is in life. Now, you may have a global one, you may have one just in your professional career, one in your family, to raise the best children, to do whatever. And so that's where I think it's important. And you have to then transcend a purpose into your organization.
Yeah.
So it's
So
part of,
I mean, the great thing about purpose is, and that's well aligned. So actually, the first topic of the roundtable discussion with the physician advisors in the Leadership Academy is going to be around purpose, and because it is a core component of the program itself. Because and I use sometimes, listen, if anybody knows, I don't quite understand it, go watch the 18-minute clip on TED Talk from Simon Sinek, starting with the why. Right,
yes,
it really helps open up people's eyes, and it's interesting because you can tell that story. Why did I go from engineering to medicine? Right, the purpose change. Although now you have the opportunity to connect your expertise, of course, process improvement, engineering, combine it with medicine and clinical practices which makes you really can optimize not only the person but also the process, which is a great opportunity. And for that, humility, right? And that's really the next one is the behavior. So tell me what you mean with the word humility in
Mhm.
leadership.
So one of the best things I ever did in my leadership is I made a mistake, and then I came forward to a large crowd who most people didn't even realize I made that mistake. And I said, okay, here I made a mistake, and here's what it is. I can tell you really briefly what it is. We were trying to, we're losing money in the organization. We had to look at staffing. We had the same staffing ratio with the nursing staff in the daytime as nighttime. We said, well, nighttime, you know, you're not getting food carts, you're not doing tests, no PTOTs, a lot of things slows down. So do we need all that nursing staff? And I talked to the VP of nursing, I talked to the directors and the managers, and said, yeah, you're right. Let's bring it down a little bit. So we did. And fortunately, I developed a good culture in the hospital where people felt comfortable coming up to me as a CEO. So I had a nurse come up to me one day. She said, boy, Joseph, you really made a mistake this time. I said, what happened? She said, well, when we get at 7 p.m., when we change shifts, the work isn't really slowing down yet. We still have a lot of admissions from the emergency department. People are getting late dinner trays. They're still getting an MRI machine, which is running till about 11 o'clock midnight. It's great pickup. Yeah, we didn't realize it. In my fault, what I learned is don't just talk to the leads, talk to the people who are actually going to be affected by it.
Yeah.
And so I went in front of all the managers and directors and said, hey, my error. I should have caught this. So this is what we're going to do going forward. And so just me showing that humility of everyone's going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
It set a whole, it didn't set the whole tone, but it's a piece of setting the tone and the culture of that organization is just being humble, admitting mistakes. And I think also part of humility is knowing when not to say something, which goes into what you were saying about leadership of it's tough going into leadership role, in particular sometimes in healthcare, because as physicians, we're used to being in control of things and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do when, now do compressions, now get some medication. As a leader, you want to give that away. You want to have other people making the decision so that they can develop their leadership skills and they can develop a stronger people, which ultimately makes a leader have a greater bandwidth. And that's one of the big transitions from being a physician to administrator, being humble, admitting mistakes, but knowing that someone else can do a little bit different than you, and you need to let them do it that way.
Yeah. So I would add only one word to that, what you said, which I think is really perfect, being vulnerable, right?
Yes.
It is nothing to make you sure that we are still human. So actually the second roundtable discussion is going to be around the topic of leading with confident humility, which is really, we teach the students to help self-identify who am I today, what I think of the real me is, by then serving the 360, the comprehensive 360, what do other people think of you? And I kind of look at what's the difference, right? Often the difference is not this. Your reality versus perception is quite, and how can we close that gap using confident humility as the basis of that? So it really helps doing that. And I think that, as we start a conversation, yes, it is recorded. Yes, it will be edited. But you know what? If we make a mistake, that's okay, because that makes us human, because we all will make mistakes. It is when we fail to learn from our mistakes when the real mistakes take place, right? So the last part of that is that you talk about accessibility. What do you mean with accessibility to transform the organization as wrapping up your book segment?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people have heard of open door policy, right? And I think leaders have that wrong in terms of the intent of it. Open door policy, people say, well, people can come to my office whenever they want. I'm accessible. Open door policy, I'm gonna say, yeah, you keep the door open so that the leader can exit the door and go out to where everyone else is, where the real work is done. The real work isn't done in an office. The real work is inside the hospital, the clinic, wherever it may be. So, some people will go and grab lunch at the cafeteria, or go wherever, and go back to the office. And I have regular basis, I call them connecting in the cafeteria. I grab lunch, I'll go up to someone in scrubs. I don't know who they are. They could be environmental services. It could be a nursing team. Could be, and I look to see who has just started eating, and I say, hey, do you mind if I join you? And you get to learn the organization. I'm accessible to them. They now know who I am. Formerly, when I was a CEO of a hospital, or right now as chief clinical officer, they get to know who I am. So I'm more accessible to them.
Yeah.
Accessibility is not only about a culture, but it's about relationships. And you can't build relationships when you're just sitting in your office. You need to
No,
be
you,
flexible.
you have to get out of the office, right? It's getting back, going where the work gets done, or
Yes.
managing by walking around. The mistake that we see that people who read a book and they think they know what that really means, too often we've seen they leave the office, but now they go out and critique the people on the floors, or they can tell them what to do or what they're doing wrong. And that is the opposite of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, right? You go out to listen. You go out to observe. You go out to ask, how are you doing today? Is there anything that stands in your way to be successful today? And then again, part of the coursework, we're going to talk about that and how to be effective and hold yourself accountable to that, because we all know, these schedules as administrators can get away from us, and these, our meetings can be filled up 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and there's nothing left on the calendar to go out. So accessibility, I agree with you, is exceptionally important. But also would add to that is that we need to know when we need to shut the door and work with great focus. And we need to learn how to communicate that out. I'm not shutting you out, but I'm doing this with the purpose of being able to serve you better. And that is something we'll cover. So great. Again, I would really encourage all of the students who are listening to this to go out and actually buy the book and read the book, and we'll talk more about that in group sessions in the future. So thank you for taking the time to lay that out. So in the closing moments, because we're trying to keep this to the 20-minute marker thereabouts, right? It is, we can talk about this for hours probably, but so what would you like to bring to the Dutch Mentor as a physician advisor and soon to be mentor to physicians on what it is that, what is your style? How would you like to do that in 30-minute intervals on a weekly basis, or in an advisor role?
Yeah, so I'm a big one on a relationship, and you really get to know each other about where you've been, what the struggles are. Again, going back to being vulnerable, humility, and then see where they want to go. I think what I bring to the table is I've been there, and I've been in the hard spot of that transition, being thrown into different roles, crossing over from different roles, and it is a struggle. And you have a whole chapter on transition from one role to another. And the biggest one you can take is you first step into administration, because now also you're leading others. And generally, as physicians, you haven't done that before. We haven't done that before.
Indirectly,
It can be stressful. So my philosophy as a mentor is figure out who that person is, what the struggles are, and then eventually where do they want to go. And I probably get just as much joy out of it as the mentees. It's a little bit of problem solving. It's a little bit of strategy and planning. And I think a lot of physicians actually don't realize the value of a mentor. I didn't until I was in that transition. I said, okay, this isn't working for me.
Yeah, most fail to see that until it is almost too late for some, right? Is that something that, and then it almost becomes like, instead of being supportive to be successful, it becomes more of remediation, like the last ditch effort. Let's assign a coach or mentor to him. And I want to make it really clear, like, what you said, mentoring is very different from being a coach. Mentoring is more that close one-to-one, building that strong relationship, that partnership, and really understanding that you've been there, done that, right? And you can talk every week, not only about some of the things that happen in the classroom and how to reinforce that and how to make those actionable, but you can also talk about real life issues, and including, accessibility when people go into a transition, how to prepare for an interview, or how to be successful after after you have been onboarded. So that's really kind of the flavor that we want to bring to the game, and it is very different from what most others have experienced at this point in time. So in closing, thank you for joining me this morning. I look very much forward to working together in our upcoming Leadership Academy, which will start in September of 2023. And our new website will be pushed out soon enough with all the information on that. And I look forward to having our roundtable discussions around these highly relevant topics. And of course, anytime you want to come back and have another chat about something you have learned along the way, it's always an open invitation.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great day.